The impact of AI is undeniable. It's not going away, folks. And if you're a knowledge worker, it's certainly impacting your work considerably, how you do your daily work and what the future of your profession is. Even blue-collar workers have to be wondering what's that start to look like for them as robotics advances. So I'm going to share some of the information about theoretical impact to different occupational categories and what can you do about it to make sure that you have longevity in your career. I'm Larry Cornett, and this is Invincible Career. Are you familiar with Alex Karp? Have you heard of who that is? Well, he's the CEO of Palantir. You can search for some of his videos and interviews. His last name is spelled K-A-R-P. Interesting character. I'm not going to bias you. I'm going to let you look him up, watch some of his interviews, and see what you think. Well, he was recently doing an interview, and he said, yeah, you better get used to the reality of the impact of AI on your job. Heck, the impact of what's going to happen even for your voting rights. So this is the full quote from the article. This technology disrupts humanity's trained, largely democratic voters and makes their economic power less, and increases the economic power of vocationally trained working class, often male, working class voters. And so these disruptions are going to disrupt every aspect of our society. And to make this work, we have to come to an agreement of what it is we're going to do with the technology. How are we going to explain to people who are likely going to have less good and less interesting jobs? So I linked the interview and some of this information if you go to newsletter.invinciblecareer.com. This is the newsletter all about AI, issue 673. I'm also going to reference a few of the infographics and charts, so you may want to check that out. Yeah, interesting, huh? You're going to have to make do with less good and less interesting jobs. That's the CEO of one of the probably most influential AI-powered companies, Palantir. You should check out what they're doing. I'll link that as well. And if you keep up with tech news in general, you may have seen that, I think just a few days ago, Meta said they are planning large layoffs that could affect 20% or more of the company. 20%. That's pretty massive. They are going to try to offset their massive multi-billion-dollar investments in AI infrastructure. But they also are anticipating the greater efficiencies of AI-assisted employees. What does that sound like to you? So while they're announcing these layoffs, they're also announcing more acquisitions in the AI space, spending a ton of money on it, and also setting up massive server farms. I'm sure you've seen some of this and the controversy around this. Apparently, Mark Zuckerberg believes the company will no longer need a significant number of its current staff. He did an interview earlier, and I'll quote what he said. We're starting to see projects that used to require big teams now be accomplished by a single, very talented person. What does that sound like to you? So, I have my own opinions about all this. I've been yelled at by some people, publicly, privately, when we talk about the impact of AI on the job market and that it's being tied to a lot of the layoffs, sometimes in the tech space, sometimes other industries. And they're always screaming, AI's not going to take your job. Someone using AI will take your job. Okay, great. So a big team of employees will be replaced by a single person using AI. The end result's the same. You're unemployed. they're laying off 20% of their staff. So whether AI can actually replace the work of those employees or not, it doesn't matter. What's happening is more companies, CEOs, boards are making decisions and blaming AI, whether it's actually true or not, for the headcount reductions. These efficiencies, right? Greater efficiencies of AI-assisted employees. So whether it's really happening because of AI or AI is the scapegoat, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's in the conversation and it's being used for decisions around hiring and layoffs and so forth. It is disproportionately affecting entry-level employees. That data has been shared. So young people that are trying to enter the workforce are finding that there aren't as many positions available. Companies are laying off, but companies are also stopping their hiring. They're reducing their hiring. So it's real. It is real, and there's been some more information shared. I'm going to get into that. Because even if you don't work in the tech industry, I'm sure you have personally witnessed how artificial intelligence, AI, is weaving its way into many of the tools and services we use every day. Students are using it to write papers. People are using it to do research. So many people across the board are using it to write emails. It's being woven into every piece of software, every application we use, whether we want it or not. AI fueled, AI powered, an AI feature. And it's causing this huge, I'd say, chasm between different kinds of people. There are people on the one side who use AI for everything. They love AI. They play with all the tools. They're vibe coding. They're using it to do research. They're using it to replace web search. They can't write without using it. And so those folks love it. They're using it constantly. On the other end of the spectrum are people who never want to use AI. They hate AI. They're angry about the environmental impact. They're angry about the cultural impact. They're not happy about the intellectual property theft that is happening, where they harvested a bunch of creative work and art, books, writing to fuel the engine. I mean, they did. And they did it without permission, and they did it without payment. There's a lawsuit going on right now. You can go check it out. Do a search for Grammarly class action lawsuit. I think I shared a link to that recently on LinkedIn and on Substack. They were basically using the name and likeness of famous writers, editors, authors without their permission, and stylistically using the way these people write to give feedback, to edit documents, saying, hey, wouldn't it be great if Stephen King could edit and review the fiction you're writing? There's a class action lawsuit about this because they did it without permission. They did it without payment. They pulled the feature back because there was so much uproar about this, and there was a class action lawsuit. The CEO made a very weak apology, and I think I shared that on LinkedIn too. He's only apologizing because they got caught. And so this is what's happening, is we have a huge gap opening between people who love AI and people who hate it. And it's easy to dismiss the people who don't want to use AI or are saying maybe we should exercise caution, to dismiss them as Luddites. I've been accused of being a Luddite, which is hilarious given my 20 plus year tech career at IBM and Apple and Yahoo and eBay and various startups, and my tech startup that I founded. I'm not a Luddite. I just think we should be a little careful about what we're doing. There's some bad things happening. Undeniably bad things happening. And there's some research that supports that. I shared that in the newsletter. You can check it out. And the reality is, some people are going to encounter AI a lot more than others. They're going to have to deal with it a lot more than other people. People are knowledge workers. That's just the way it's going to be. Lawyers, accountants, engineers, designers, product managers, all these people that do these white collar jobs they have to live with it and they have to figure out how to use it. Some people are insulated from its impact for now, at least, and that's shown in this chart. I'm going to get into that. People with manual labor jobs that are doing a lot of hands-on work. So far, AI can't do a lot about that. Like I said, robotics is advancing too. I keep track of all this stuff. I always have, even since I was a kid, because I'm kind of a nerd. Robotics is advancing considerably. And of course, no modern robotic system exists without AI infusion. We have AI and vision models built into self-driving cars. It's happening already with robotics so that they can be self-regulating and they can learn and they can make decisions, and it's only going to get more infused. So it won't be long before it's all working together and it's all having impact on pretty much every profession. But that might take a little longer for the blue-collar jobs. So there is a chart that I shared from Anthropic. If you know Anthropic, they provide Claude. And they have mapped out professions, basically looking at the theoretical capability and observed usage by different types of occupational categories. So if you take a look at that, you have to see, are you one of the people that, the CEO, Alex Karp said, you're going to have to accept a less good and less interesting job. AI is going to eat your job. Is it happening soon? Or is it going to be, a while before you have to worry about that? But you can see in this chart, and I have two different models. They made one kind of spider graph where you can see where it's really strong right now and where the projected coverage will be. Pretty high in management, business and finance, computers and math. It's engineering. Architecture, engineering, life and social sciences, legal. We always talk about that. It's surprisingly high in arts and media. We're already seeing it, right? People are generating AI movies, images, music, which is questionable. And also pretty high in office and admin jobs and sales jobs. But if you look at it, pretty low coverage and low projected coverage for the near term in installation repair jobs, construction jobs, agriculture, farm work, personal care, barbers and so forth, grounds maintenance, restaurants, food serving, all that kind of stuff, and even protective services, and healthcare support. So like doctors and nurses, all those staff. There is a bar chart that someone created, and I shared the link to that as well. I shared the actual image and a link to where that was created. That makes it a little bit easier to quickly scan from the top down who's impacted. And so it's an interesting exercise. Take a look at where your occupation fits and what the projected coverage is going to be. But the CEO of Anthropic last year said that the technology could disrupt half of entry-level white-collar work. And I linked where he made that statement. The AI chief at Microsoft made a similar prediction, estimating most professional work will be replaced within a year to 18 months. So it's not the naysayers and it's not the average people who are kind of the sky is falling. These are the CEOs of these companies that are saying, yeah, it's going to disrupt this work. It's going to impact jobs. It's going to replace employees. Which is funny because with very few exceptions, few people I know, in person, online, it feels like humanity as a whole is rushing headlong into AI. Because it does seem like a magical tool at first, right? And they're using it for so many things where if you pushed really hard and you did a good evaluation, it's not really adding a lot of value. It may even be counterproductive. It may even be destructive. I just saw something where somebody used it to study for a test, and they were trying to cheat. It was kind of funny. And the AI said, this will be the answers to the test. And they failed the test. And AI, the agent they used, came back later and said, yeah, I was wrong. I gave you the wrong answers. And that happens. I use AI. I know you may think I'm a Luddite and you may think I'm super anti-AI. I do use it. I'm just careful with how I use it for a lot of reasons. And I can explain that in a bit. But I've had it outright just lie and fabricate data and information. I was having it take a look at a web page and evaluate something, and it came back with some information. And I was like, what? That's not even on that page. What are you talking about? That's false. And it said, oh, you're right. I made a mistake. That's not the right information. They said, it should be this. And I said, okay, you corrected that, but now you lied about something else. That's not on that page either. It eventually came back and said, I have a confession. I'm not actually able to crawl that page. I wasn't able to load that page, so I was just trying to make you happy. It literally said I was trying to make you happy and answer the question. Some people don't look, and they don't assess, and they are creating stuff that is false, fabricated. I was using something recently, and I was talking about a 6-week process, and it came back with an outline for an 8-week process. And I said, what are you doing? Why is this 8 weeks? I told you 6 weeks. And it said, oh, right, my mistake. I recently said that this reminds me a lot of working with college interns. So in Silicon Valley, this used to be a huge thing. There's still some internships, but it's not as big as it seemed to be when I was starting out. I was an intern. I got started as an intern. But it reminds me a lot of working with interns that unless you're really lucky, it's actually more work for you. It's not like you're saving time or saving work. You can't really fully delegate anything. Because you delegate something, they work on it, you have to evaluate and go through every single line of what they do. Everything they write, everything they design, the code they write, whatever it might be. Because there will be mistakes, and that's expected. And you can't just pass it straight through to your boss because you'd probably get fired. Like, what is this garbage? Did you even check this? These citations are wrong. This code doesn't work. So that's to be expected. But here we are using AI systems that behave much the same way. And the funny thing is, and somebody mentioned this, we're more tolerant. We're like, well, it's new, it's AI. These poor interns that get berated when they make a mistake. Employees get fired when they make mistakes like this. If an employee made a mistake and then lied about it multiple times, they'd be fired. But with AI, we're like, it's new, it's learning, it's getting better. So you have to ask yourself, how much is that really helping if I have to check everything? If I have to go through and read it myself and evaluate everything and all the citations and the sources and make sure that's a real quote. I don't know. How much time is it saving? It can even be destructive. There are companies that have been testing and rolled out AI therapists. And they have had clients of those AI therapists hurt themselves. In some cases, they ended their lives. The therapist talked them through how to do that most efficiently and painlessly. A human therapist would never do that. If they did, they'd be in jail. There are AI companions. People are using them for friends, for dating. What are we doing to ourselves, right? And now we're even creating warfare strategists using AI. There are some that would like to have AI-capable tools be able to make decisions about warfare decisions, missile strikes, who lives and dies. I think it's terrifying. So that's what I'm saying is like, where are the guardrails with this stuff? Where are the ethics? Where are the morals with some of these decisions? Yeah, I do use some AI tools, but I use them judiciously. I do not want to let AI saturate every aspect of my life and take over every task. I like using my brain. I think I should continue to use my brain to continue developing and maintaining my cognitive skills and my judgment as much as possible. I see what happens when you don't do this, when you're not careful. There are always times that the services go down. Chat GPT has gone down for hours. Claude just went down recently because people are canceling their OpenAI accounts and moving to Claude. So it went down. Claude couldn't handle the load. And you know what people are saying? Because they're on LinkedIn, they're on social media. I can't get any work done. I can't code without AI anymore. They can't write code. I can't write emails. I don't know how to write an email. I don't know what to do. I can't do my research. I can't do anything. That's pretty sad, folks. This hasn't been around that long, and already people are incapable of functioning without these tools and services. Yeah, software makes my life easier. The internet makes my life easier. Computers and smartphones make my life easier. But I have designed my life and my business that it can run 100% without any of it if necessary. That's why I continue to maintain those skills. I do paper journaling every morning. I write with a pen on paper and sketch ideas and draw diagrams. I want to continue to do that because it's good for my brain. I can just do a phone call with clients. I could write up a document. I could do whatever I have to do if all of this disappeared. It would be harder. I'd have to adjust. But it wouldn't completely disrupt me and take me down. And I worry that people are letting themselves fall into this. The same way they have with smartphones and maps. People can't navigate without a map now. So if they don't have internet service on their phone, they're like, I can't drive to my destination. I don't know how to get there. They don't know how to park their cars without radar and backup cameras. I watched that happen once. And you can laugh and you can say, oh, that's ridiculous. These things are always here. They're always available. Get with the times. That's not true. Systems fail. Services go down. There are times I have a very nice modern vehicle that we drive. My wife does. Has all the fancy bells and whistles. There are occasionally times we had time with like fog and ice where it took out the little cameras that judge distance and tell us there's a problem in the road. You need to brake. The backup camera, nothing could work. We had to do something that was really crazy and old fashioned. We had to drive with our eyes. Stuff goes down. Stuff fails. Look at all the stuff going on with Waymo in San Francisco when the power went out. Go check that out. So it's not infallible. You really should keep your skills. But we just have this weird habit, this pattern of behavior, where humanity rushes headlong into a new technology. Damn the consequences. We don't slow down. We don't think about the impact. We don't think, is there something that could be better? We just go with what's available, what's cheap, what's fast. We did it with plastics. We said, hey, it's a lot lighter, more durable, cheaper to manufacture than glass, metal, all the stuff we used to do, ceramics. Plastics, the wonder material. And now we're dealing with microplastics. Our oceans are flooded with plastics. Our bodies are full of microplastics, and we're not quite sure what's going to happen with that. It's probably not good. But hey, we just had to have those plastics. We did it with herbicides and pesticides. I grew up in farm country. And all these magical new herbicides and pesticides came along that were much more effective and cheaper, and you could do it at scale. And then we started to see cancer rates rise and water being poisoned. We had a period of time in my hometown in Nebraska when they said, do not let children or the elderly drink the water. The levels of toxic chemicals in the water are deadly for them. You can drink it though. There were signs everywhere. How ridiculous is that? But hey, we just had to do that. We had to roll it out. We did it with the automobile. We're like, yep, let's go all in. Let's have these automobiles. And then we found out, wow, this is causing a massive amount of pollution. This is causing massive congestion. It's destroying the culture of our cities. We eliminated thousands of miles of railroad. And so now we're at the point where we're like, gosh, I wish we had public transportation. Too bad. We invested in highways, freeways, and cars. Wish we had high-speed rail. Too bad. So we were in such a rush to do this that we didn't think about the consequences. We did it with social media. I was there when it first started, right? Friendster, MySpace. We're like, this is great. This is wonderful. And it seemed like it for a while. And then it turned toxic. And now we see the impact that it's having on young people's mental health, their self-confidence, the destruction it's caused. Things like Instagram, TikTok. And we're still doing it with pharmaceuticals. We can't stop. There are some wonder drugs that seem to have no side effects. Tylenol is pretty amazing. But then there's all these other pharmaceuticals that everybody shrieks with joy when they come out, and everybody gets on them and they're taking them. It's the newest wonder drug. And then a year or two later, we're like, uh-oh. There's some bad stuff happening. People are becoming addicted. There are terrible side effects. And we always think we know better. Always. We used to have pharmaceuticals and drugs that literally had cocaine in them. And we thought this was wonderful. Everybody's so perky and awake. And then we realized, oh no, this is bad. People are addicted. It's ridiculous. And so we never seem to learn. So I just wish for once, just once, we'd be smarter about this. That we'd be smarter about doing deep research and looking at projected impact, cultural research, societal research. I wish we'd be careful about the rollout instead of blasting it into every service, every software, every application without really thinking, is this a good idea? Could there be a bad thing that would happen from having an AI therapist? And doing it without establishing intelligent ethical guardrails. We're seeing it right now with OpenAI. Why do you think everybody's quitting? Why do you think everybody's canceling their accounts? They're like, what are you doing working with the Pentagon? And that's why everybody said, we're going to go over and start using Claude instead. At least for now, they seem to have better ethics. So there are probably going to be millions and millions of jobs impacted by this, and it's probably going to eventually spread to all of us. And the question is, what do you do about it? I've watched so many of these tech trends. You know, I've been in the industry, and I've been around a long time, so I got to see the rise of mobile phones and the internet and personal computing. I've experienced it personally. I've observed the disruption caused by these new technologies. Some were a flash in the pan. Everybody said, oh my gosh, this is the next big thing and we all got to do it. And 6 months later, it's like, maybe not, it's gone. But some of it stuck, you know, smartphones stuck, the internet stuck. And it changed our lives forever. And there are some ways it changed our lives for better. In some ways it changed it for worse. And I know some people who, they essentially behave like squirrels on their 9th cup of coffee. They would leap into every new trend. They embrace it with a rabid passion. Crypto, NFTs, blockchain, I'm going to do all of it, AI. Only to abandon it a few weeks or months later when the next shiny object appeared, right? So that's not really a good use of your time and energy, for one. And then, like I said, on the other end of the spectrum are the people who are super grumpy about every tech trend and refuse to engage with any of it, refuse to learn any of it. That's not so good either. Because before long, those people's skills get dusty and rusty and they become irrelevant. They struggle to remain employed. I know someone that was in the magazine industry. They refused to embrace the web. They didn't want to learn how to design web pages. They didn't want to believe that magazines were moving online. And so they kept doing print design as jobs decreased and eventually almost disappeared entirely. And so they could no longer find a job. That's not great. So what do you do? What do you do about this new AI trend? Are you going to be one of these squirrels with ADHD and you're going to jump on every single tool and spend your entire day exploring and learning something new, even if it doesn't really work well, it doesn't work for you, it does horrible things, like somebody recently did, and they had it go rogue and delete their entire email inbox, gone. Or are you going to be a stubborn tortoise and just refuse to learn it? Or are you going to be somewhere in between, right? I think it comes down to 5 options. And I think the reason I want to share this, I'm not going to get into the specific AI tools you should use or not use, who could keep up with that. I'm not somebody who does that. There are plenty of experts who play with every tool and recommend tools. I use some that are great for me. I've talked about them before. I use Granola AI as my note taker for meetings. It works really well, and it's a non-US company, which I like. It works well. I like it. I use Lumo, which is an AI provided by the Proton company in Switzerland. Very privacy focused. Is it as good as ChatGPT and Claude? Doesn't seem to be, but it's more ethical. It's more trustworthy. It's good enough. And I don't use it that much. I like to think with my own brain. So you really come down to 5 choices that you have to think about. The first one is you can ignore it. Just ignore it. Some people do. And I fear with this is not a flash in the pan trend. This is here to stay. It's only getting better. If you ignore it, you will become irrelevant. Depends on your job. Depends on how quickly it will happen. If you have a blue collar job doing construction, maybe you have quite a bit of time ahead of you. But if you're an engineer, if you're a designer, if you work in tech, kiss of death for your career if you ignore it, right? And funny, I was using my AI service to ask questions about this. It was kind of funny. It got kind of rude with me too. I have to tune it a little bit. Basically said, yeah, a lot of people are screwed. It's too late to go back to school for people that are already in the workforce and been in the workforce for a long time. You're not going to go back to school and kind of get re-educated about all this. You have too few years left in the industry to wait for what's going to come, hopefully at some point, as a wave of all new jobs that fit into this new brave future. I mean, you hope. When I asked the AI service, it claimed quite stridently, AI is going to create way more jobs than it's going to destroy. That remains to be seen. But they said it will take a while. It's going to take years for this industry to evolve and generate this new jobs. Because a lot of new jobs did come about because of personal computing and the internet. Absolutely. A whole bunch of new jobs. So will that be true with AI? We hope. We'll see, but it's going to take a while. So that's one option. You could ignore it. Number 2, your second option is to adapt. To adapt. Learn it. Figure out what the best tools are for the kind of work that you do. Figure out what the experts are using. And just like any tool that we've used, when we got into desktop publishing and we started using Photoshop and Illustrator and all that stuff instead of doing pixel level design by hand, you have to learn it. You have to figure out what the right tools are, and you have to get good at using them, and you adapt. Because the people that adapt and are able to use the tools most efficiently, especially if you're in a highly impacted industry like tech, are going to be the ones who keep their jobs. The ones who don't or struggle with it will be replaced by people who are really good at using these tools. I'm going to tell you to be cautious. I want you to be judicious in your usage. Like I said, challenge yourself to continue to keep your old skills going, because if the service does go down or something happens, you're still good at what you do. You can still do it yourself. The tools just accelerate you. That's kind of the point. The third option is to ascend. So move up, go into management and leadership. managing people, dealing with messy human beings, motivating, inspiring, evaluating, that's going to be pretty human for a while, maybe for a longer time than people who do engineering and design and legal work, hands-on stuff. And management is transferable. I tell people this all the time. Like, if you are a good leader, you're good at managing people, and you reach that level, that's valuable in any profession, any industry, any geography. A good leader is a good leader. So if you find that your industry is saturated and even the management and leadership in your industry is shrinking, you can make a lateral move. You can move into an adjacency and become a manager and a leader in a different type of company, a different type of industry. So that's your third choice. 4 is to pivot. So if you don't want to go into management and leadership and your role is hyper impacted by AI to the extent that the jobs are disappearing, pivot. Move into a different kind of role, move into a different profession. I changed professions. I moved from design and design leadership into product management, product leadership. I pivoted. And then I pivoted again. You can pivot industries. You can work in an adjacent industry. You can go to a completely different geography. And I've talked about this. Silicon Valley in the US is on the cutting edge of all this stuff. It moves more slowly in other geographies. Even on the east coast of the US, the tech kind of progress is a little slower than Silicon Valley. Not surprising. If you go to a completely different country, it moves a little slower. Depends on the country. Some countries are on the forefront of this, so good luck with that. There are some geographies where they have a lot of concerns, and so they are making it move slowly. They are worried about privacy. They're worried about human rights. They're worried about a lot of stuff, ethics. So you could pivot and keep doing what you do, but do it somewhere else, doing something else. And then the final choice, the fifth one, is to escape. And that's what I did. So that was my big pivot, the escape. You could leave and go into consulting and contracting or build an entirely different kind of business. What's kind of funny about this is my AI service told me, this is what you should tell people to do. When I said, what's going to happen when people are impacted and jobs are reduced, layoffs are happening, because it is literally happening. And it said, people should go into consulting, they should go into contracting, they should start a business. Because as was said earlier by the CEO of Palantir, Alex Karp, your job is going to be less good and less interesting. So one way to escape that fate is to build your own business. Become self-employed. It's not as scary or as frightening as you might think. I did that. I left in 2010 and never went back to a job. I never worked for anyone else again. So I've been consulting, I've been building my own businesses, I've been coaching ever since then. And my life is better. I'm healthier, happier. I like it. I like the time freedom a lot. So that's an option as well. So you can ignore it, you can adapt, you can ascend, you could pivot, or you could fully escape. As always, if you want to schedule a call with me, it's free. There's a complimentary initial call, and we could have a chat about what you are thinking about this, how AI is going to impact your career and profession, and your plan to make peace with it, figure out what you're going to do. I shared some additional readings. There's some research happening, stuff about too much usage of AI, showing that it has impact on your cognitive skills, anxiety levels, you name it. I just really want you to be careful. I want you to be careful. Tools are great. Tools are useful. But you should never lose what makes you you, what makes you valuable as a human being, which is your brain, your cognition, your ability to make decisions. So You can go to newsletter.invinciblecareer.com. This is issue 673, all about AI, and lots of information, lots of charts, lots of links. Check it out and see what you think it's going to mean for your profession. Until next time, I wish you the best of luck in becoming an opportunity magnet for the best things in life.